When you first open this file, it's going to pop up this screen here that's going to ask you whether you want to disable or enable macros. You are going to need to enable those macros or this spreadsheet will not function correctly. All of these buttons within the spreadsheet, both these change currency buttons, all of the submit buttons that you'll see in different areas, like here in your sales sheet, all of these require those macros to be able to work. So you need to have that enabled. Now, if for some reason it is still telling you that it's disabling the macros, regardless of what you clicked there, because sometimes that happens. If your security features in Microsoft are really strong, so to speak, it's going to require an extra step. So if you go up to on a Mac, you'll go up here to this Excel section and you'll hit Preferences. On a PC, I believe you go under File and it's under Properties. So we'll go to Security and then it's just the same. You go to Security and you're going to click Enable All Macros. Now, on Google, it's a little bit different. It will open just fine, but when you go to submit anything, so if I go to click this button here, it's going to pop up an alert. So when it says authorization required, a script attached to this document needs your permission to run. You will only have to do this the first time you press a button. You do not have to do this every time. I promise I would not have made it in Google if you did. So you're going to click continue. And it's going to ask you to log in or to choose the account that you want to log in with. And then it's going to say Google hasn't verified this app. Okay, you can click back to safety if you don't want to use a spreadsheet. But in order to use a spreadsheet, you need to click advanced. And you'll come down here and it's going to say go to financial and business management system, script unsafe. Because essentially you're opening another file, so to speak, and that is the script file. That's all the coding on the back end. So we'll click that. And it wants access to your Google account and you allow. And that's essentially so that your account can see and use all of this stuff. We allow, and there you go. Now everything will function as it's supposed to. Now, one more thing before we jump into how this works, so I don't forget. If for some reason you scroll over here and you don't see a submit button here or anywhere else in any of these other forms, like in here, if you don't see this button right here, then go up to your history and clear your history, your cache, and your cookies. That is, for whatever reason, Google has an issue with those and it just won't display it. So once you clear your cache, it will display and it will all function just fine. So this is very much like our solo therapist version, but we've added a whole bunch of things that let you look at the data specific to your staff. So you can compare data between employees. You can have a whole bunch of their numbers directly in front of you for things like performance reviews and things like that. So let's just jump into kind of a general overview of how this works and how it's laid out and how you'll move around this spreadsheet. And then we'll get into the specifics of how exactly you'll use it. So you'll see here first, we're on our dashboard. So this is just kind of a general overview of what's going on in the business. We don't have any data in here yet. So obviously all of these charts are blank, but as we fill in some sample data, you'll see these start to develop. Now you'll navigate here on the left. You'll see you always have today's date up here. And then we've got our monthly sheets. Zoom in a little bit so you can see this better. And you'll see that this is a drop down. So you can select the month. Say I want to jump to January, and then I'll click January, and that will take me to this sheet that includes all of January's information. We've got a calendar, sales, expenses, travel log, marketing plan, all kinds of stuff. So we'll get into all the details of all of that in a few minutes. We'll jump back to our dashboard. And then again, you can use this to jump around. So we've got a gift cards tab, packages, profit and loss statement, clients, and then your staff. And so this allows you to see all kinds of information. So this is very specific, obviously, to the employer version. But we're going to start on this tab here, which is update info. So here's where we're going to actually enter in the info for the business. And this is where you need to start to get things going, to actually set everything in place so that the spreadsheet will function as you need it to. So let's go through each section so you can see what you'll need to put in here. Let's start with our payment types accepted. Now you can add more here. You can change any of these in this. If you don't accept Venmo, change this to something else. If you don't accept insurance, change it to something else. But this will be the options that you'll have in a drop down to be able to choose whenever you have a sale, you can select how they paid, so you can keep track of that. And you'll see here, depending on what you're doing, if it's something like a card where you need to have in a percentage per transaction, and then if there is a flat fee per use. So let's say that your card has a 2.9% charge for each swipe of the card. Then we want to put that in there, and then a fee per use, let's say it's 30 cents. So this keeps tabs of your credit card fees so that you can keep up with how much you're actually paying in those per month and mark them as an expense, because a lot of people those are a little bit of a surprise and they add up very quickly. Next up, we're going to come down here, we're going to mark how long our gift cards are good for. So how long after purchase do they expire? I'm in the state of Tennessee. We require 2 years on all gift cards, state law. So we're going to mark 24 months after purchase is what we've got here. Packages, that's more individual unless your state has regulations on prepaid services like that. I'm going to say my policy might be 12 months that their packages will expire if I sell packages. And then here's where we're going to actually do a distribution of revenue. And you'll see you've got some percentages already in here, and this is just because this is oftentimes how things are split up. This is not a must do. I just wanted these in here for a sample. So if you don't already have a specific way that you want to distribute your revenue out, then this kind of gives you a starting point. So we would have our business profit at 10%, our owner's compensation at 25%, our taxes at 30%, operating expenses at 30%, and savings at 5%. And this is essentially so that each month and over the year, you can see how much should you have in your account for owner's compensation, how much should be getting set aside for business profit, how much should you have set aside for taxes, what percentage, or excuse me, how much should you have in your bank account that's for operating expenses, and how much in savings. So it's just to kind of help you keep tabs of how much you should be setting aside for each section. Next up, we're going to jump over here to our expense categories. Now, again, I've got a bunch of samples in here, just kind of some general stuff that applies to a lot of businesses, but you can change these, absolutely. Change any of these that you want, and then I've got a couple extra categories if you have a whole bunch. And then your marketing avenues, and this again is same thing. You can change these, add however many you want. These can get as specific as you want or as general as you want, but we are limited on the number. So as long as they'll all fit in here, you can mark whatever you want. So this will help you keep up with how people are hearing about you, which we'll showcase over in the clients tab in a few minutes. Then we've got your client status. So you're able to mark clients with a certain status. Now you may or may not use this. That's totally up to you. But I wanted to give this option for people who have like a VIP program, or if you've got people that you want to mark as a red flag, again, that's something in the clients tab. You're able to keep a running list of people that you have marked as a red flag. This person does not need to be seen as a client for whatever reason. So you can mark them however you want. You can add these. You can just keep one red flag in here, and that's the only type of status that you would apply to, and that's perfectly fine. But this just gives you the option to kind of separate out your clients if you want into specific status levels. And then your expense accounts here, again, you can change these. These are just kind of general basic ones that a lot of people have. And then you can add others in if you have more than this. And again, when you go to enter in your expenses, you're able to mark where those expenses are being paid out of. So you can keep tabs of that. Then we also want to mark our initial follow-up, our check-in, and our re-engagement for clients. So after their initial visit, how many days after do we need to be following up with them? So whether that's a text, an email, phone call, whatever. So for marketing purposes and re-engagement and things like that, we want to, keep in touch with our clients on a regular basis. So we want to mark initial follow-up, let's say is 2 days. You can change these numbers, by the way. Check-in, we would do 7 days later with a little bit more info and kind of, they've still not booked a session. Let's go ahead and try to do another, rebooking now. And then a re-engagement is they've not contacted us in a while. They've not had an appointment. We really need to try to get them in on the books again. And that's where this comes in. And I'll show you how all of this feeds into the spreadsheet here in a little bit. But let's look. And again, this is specific to this employer version. Here's where you're going to enter some employee information. So you've got your list of employees. You've got up to 15 employees here, and you can just mark their names. And any that don't apply, you can erase this employee number 8, employee number 9, whatever, and put in whoever you've got. If you've got 1 employee or 15, this will work for you. Put in their title, if they're a massage therapist, an esthetician, receptionist, whatever. And then here's where you can figure up or lay out their pay. Now, this is not a payroll system. This is not going to factor in all the taxes and extra employee costs that come with having employees. This is just direct pay. But we can put in the amounts here, and this will calculate for you so that you can keep tabs of what is this person's direct pay versus this other person, and how does that relate to the profit that they brought into the business, and things like that. So we can put in their pay here for services. This is their per service count. So how many services, if you pay that way, say each service they get, $10, plus they have an hourly pay of so much, plus a commission, which would be a percentage of their service sales. The same kind of setup for your add-ons. If you separate these out, so there's account pay, hour pay, and commission pay. You may use all of these. You may use only one. You may use two. It really is up to you and how you pay your people. I just wanted to give as many options as possible because I know a whole lot of you have very different pay scales and pay setups for your employees. Then for products, we have pay, like direct pay for products. So if they sell a single product and they get $2 for selling a product, then that's what would go here. They get $2 every time they sell a product. So that would go by product count. Whereas if they get a commission, then it will go based on the amount that they sell in products. It'd be the percentage. So for gift cards, you also have a sales pay and a sales commission, and then packages, sales pay, and sales commission as well. So same kind of setup for your products, gift cards, and packages here. And again, you may they only get paid by hour of service, and you only ever use this one column. That's perfectly fine. You may have hourly pay plus commission. You may use all of these and pay all these different things. You may have a really complex payment system that factors in all of these. That's totally fine too. However it's set up, I wanted to kind of give you the option of having the very complex to the very simple. So I'm going to go ahead and enter in just some sample data, just so as we go and use this, you can see how all this works. Okay, so I've got some samples in here, and these are really just basic, just so you can see how this functions. So I've got their hourly pay and commission. So let's say that they're either at 12, 13, or 15 per hour, plus 20% commission or 25% commission for some people. Then we've got a count pay for add-on. So every time they upsell an add-on, they get $2. Every time they sell a product, they get $2. Every time they sell a gift card, they get $5. And every time they sell a package, they get 10%. And I'm just doing this just for a sample. One thing I do want to note here is if you change someone's pay, so they get a pay increase or you change their commission amount, you cannot come in here and just change it here all along this line. If you do, it will recalculate for all the previous months. So let's say that you change it in July, they get a raise. If you come in and you change it right here, it will recalculate everything from January through June at that new rate. And so it will throw off all of your numbers for their pay and skew that. So instead, your best bet, I know most people who are using this are not going to have 15 employees. That's why I build in 15, is so that you can come down here and say, okay, this is employee number one's raise rate. So this is what we're going to mark them as from July on, is we're going to change them to this higher tiered price here. And we're just going to change their name here so that we can mark it. All right, so now that we've got our employees set up, we've got all of this figured out up here. Now it's time to add in our services. So primary services, add-ons, products, gift cards, packages. And then if you rent any spaces, you can have that here, as well as if you teach any classes, whether that's to the public or CE classes, whatever it may be. So you'll see you have room for 35 of each of these categories, or within each of these categories. You'll change the name, you'll mark the fee, you'll put in the service hours for that so we can track how many service hours you're actually doing. And then if it's taxable in your area, we would put in our tax rate. That exact same setup applies to your primary services and your add-ons. And then over in products, you put in your product name, the fee, and the tax rate. And then gift cards, same thing, name. You've got a description here if it's something like you name them differently than what they're really described as or what they include. That way you've got the description just to keep track of things, the fee and the tax rate. And then your packages, you put in your package name, your fee, your tax rate, and then how many services that is. So if you're selling packages of, 6 60-minute massages, we were going to put 6 here so that it will reflect how many services are included in that package, which is going to help you track them as they're used later on whenever I show you the packages tab. And then rent, you put in that renter's name, any details that you may want to keep track of, the fee that they pay you, and the tax rate if it's taxable. And then if you teach classes, the class name, the fee, and the tax rate. So pretty straightforward. I am going to go ahead and put in, again, some sample data here so that we can get this rolling. All right, now that we've got all of these samples in here, you'll see we've got our services, our fees, and our service hours laid out. In Tennessee, we don't tax services like this, so tax rate is left empty. Now, I do want to note, just like we talked about with the with the employee pay, if you were going to come and change a price, like do a price increase halfway through the year, then I would suggest you not change it here. You need to list it as a new service and then add in that new price. That way everything stays calculating correctly, or it will go back and recalculate everything from the months previous. So if you do a price increase, just add it like a new service and mark it as such. So we've got some add-ons in here. We've got some products, which again, I've got our tax rate set out here because we do tax products. And then we've got our gift cards laid out, our packages with our service counts listed, our rent, and classes. All right, so that wraps up everything on this sheet. Once you get all of this in here, then it's pretty much gonna function how you need it to. All the info is gonna feed in as it's supposed to. So now it's just a matter of entering your sales and expenses and things like that. So first, let's jump to the clients section so that we can see how this works. As you enter clients, as intake forms come in, and you start seeing people, you've got a client entry form up here, and this is where you're going to actually be putting in information, and then all of these other boxes and sections will fill in as you go. You don't need to do anything except for in this box. So you'll see you've got, let's zoom in a little bit here for you. You've got your client's name, acquisition method, so how they heard about you. So this again is feeding in from that enter info tab. So we'll say they heard about word of mouth, and we'll say they were referred by Jane Smith. We'll mark their birthday, their address, their phone number, their email, and their status, again, where you can mark this. So let's just say he's a VIP client. What goals? Reduce back pain. Any other notes you may want to put in here that you think are relevant that you want to make sure you have kind of front and center. And then when you're all done with that, you will hit submit. And you'll see that it will pop down here into this table. And this is where all of this info automatically copies down. So you've got their name, their status, all of this stuff. And then you'll notice that there's a bunch of blanks here. All this number of visits, total spend, average spend, first session date, last session date, any feedback. You can put whatever information you want in here in this feedback quotes testimonial. So if they give you a good quote that you want to use in your marketing, be sure and mark it here so that you can come back and refer to this when you're trying to think up something, to post on social media or something like that. But this data right here will auto-populate. This will calculate itself as you enter in your sale. So every time John Smith comes in and you have that name on a sale, it's going to track how many visits he had, how much he has spent, how much he has spent on average each visit, when his first session was and when his last session was. That way you can keep up with this stuff. And you can look back through and see who's doing what, basically. So it's going to be blank now, but it will add in once we start adding in some sales. So now I'm just going to enter in some sample data so you can see how this works in other ways. All right, so I've got just a couple in here. I'm going to go ahead and clear this out. So every time you're done with this client entry form, once you hit submit, just hit clear and it'll clear all these boxes for you so you can do another one. Now you'll see here, we don't have any data for visits or amounts spent or average spend or anything like that because we don't have any of these people in for sales yet. But we do see that our top acquisition method is Facebook because most of these clients, these whopping 4 clients that I've entered, have come from Facebook. You'll also see here that we have upcoming birthdays listed out. And so you'll see whose birthdays are coming up. And then you'll see your red flag clients as well will pop up in this list. Anybody that you mark as red flag will appear here. Now again, once we start to enter sales, you'll see that these boxes will fill in. So we'll come back here and check in just a little bit so you can see how that works. But for now, let's go ahead and start entering in some of that actual sales data and everything else. So we're going to jump over to our monthly sheets. Oops. You're going to click that drop down. And again, you'll have to click the month. Let's look at an overview of this entire sheet, and then we'll come back here. So you've got your calendar here, and you can scroll to the side, or you can use these little menus at the top to jump from section to section if you need to. So we've got a sales section. So here's where we're going to actually enter our sales in, and then all kinds of data is going to populate for us. And then we've got our expenses here, and we've got our travel log. So if you're a mobile therapist especially, this is going to work great for you. And then our marketing plan. Okay, so this is all in each monthly sheet. That way you can keep track of everything all together by month. So let's come back here to our calendar and zoom in a little bit so that you can see how this works. If you want to use this year after year, you can absolutely change the year here, and you'll see the dates will change to reflect that within the calendar. So you've got your time you can choose from to mark appointments if you choose to use this for appointment upkeep. We've got John Smith coming in for a 60-minute relaxation, and let's say he's doing a hot stone add-on. Okay, and so this is just so you've got reference for what's happening what day if you want to use this calendar. Now in the bottom part of each day, you've got a marketing section. You do not want to put anything in here directly. You'll see this big old formula here. That is pulling data over from your marketing strategy on the other end of this sheet so that as you plan out stuff there, it automatically populates into the corresponding day that you need it to be in. All right, so that's the basics of how you use this calendar just to keep up with your appointments and such. Now we're going to run to sales, and we're going to start entering in some info so that we can see how all this is going to populate. So again, there's this form here that you're going to fill in with each sale. We're going to mark our client, say John Smith came in. He is a new client, and he booked a primary service, which is a 60-minute relaxation. So we've got your sale type, so we need to know which type it is. Is it primary service, add-on, product, gift card, blah, 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 and then which one that corresponds to. And then let's say he also got an add-on of hot stones. And our payment type, again, this populates from our list over whenever we entered in our info. We'll say he's paying with a card. And we'll mark our therapist, which therapist is taking care of him. Let's say employee number 1, whoever that may be. And you'll see here you get your total. He doesn't have a discount. Let's say he tips $15. That automatically adds in here to his total. And we submit. Now you'll see all of that information has populated down here in this field, in this big table, so that you can keep track like that. But you'll also see you now have data popping up in all of these little charts and areas here. So I'm going to enter in some more sample data so that you can see how this is going to work with multiple sales entered. All right, I've got our sample data entered here, just a few sessions just so you can kind of see the gist of how this works. You'll see you get your gross account here, and you can set a goal. Each one of these little boxes in your gross, your net, your rebooking rate, client counts, things like that. You can set a goal, so just type in whatever your goal is. Let's say you have a goal of $10,000 this month. And that way you can sit there and you can compare what's my actual versus my goal. And how close are you toward the end of the month? You see your net, we don't have any expenses in yet, so it's not going to calculate anything different because we don't have anything to subtract from it. You've got your rebooking rate over here, as well as a little chart so you can see new client versus return clients, total client counts, see everything broken down there, how many service hours, tax collected, which we've not sold anything that's taxable yet, credit card fees, how much was paid in credit card fees. And then here you can choose which one was your most popular primary service. And you're going to see that you had one 60-minute relaxation. We sold one of a lot of things. We didn't sell more than one, at least in the sample. If you sell more, it's going to show you the most popular of anything. Okay, so you can choose between primary services, add-ons, packages, which one is most popular, which one gave you the most revenue, because sometimes the most revenue isn't the most popular, and vice versa. You'll also see this sale type breakdown here, so you can see all your different sale types, how much revenue you got of each, what the count was of each of those. And there's a little chart here that's the same data, just in a chart display for those of you who are visual processors here. All right, and in this section, you can see kind of a comparison between services. So you can choose primary services, add-ons, products, gift cards, packages, rent, classes, so that you can see a comparison between those things. If I was to choose add-ons, the chart changes and it reflects that. Right now, again, we only have one add-on in here, so we're just seeing the one, but you can see how we're going to be comparing the revenue brought in based on the service. Then your distribution of revenue, just like we talked about, you've got your percentage breakdown. This is how much should be in each account based on that percentage breakdown that you list out in that Enter Info, Update Info tab. All right. Now, real quick, I want to jump over to our clients section just so you can see how this has now populated. Your number of visits, each person has one, what their total spend was, what their average spend was, their first session date, their last session date. And you'll see up here, it'll show you who has the most visits. Right now they're all one, so it's just going to pick the first one, who spent the most and who had the highest average spend. Now you're going to see if I come in here and I change this date, I'm going to put it just 2 days prior to today just to show how this works. Then I come back to clients, you're going to see he's now bumped up to needs initial follow-up because we're 2 days out from his last visit. So that means I need to follow up with this person. So you're going to see this is going to auto-populate based on when you saw them, the date next to their name last. Same thing will happen with the check-in and re-engagement based on how many days you put in that update info area. All right, so again, clear that out. So that's the gist of this sales area so that you can see how everything kind of functions together. Now let's go over to your expenses. Again, you can just click up here. I'm just used to scrolling. And we do the same kind of thing. You have an entry form here. You're going to enter in the information of the expense, the company, the amount, and the category that it plays in, which is what we have in our in that update info area. The due date for that description, what account you paid it from, and whether it has been paid or not. And then you'll see down here, again, this has got a table where everything will go in so you can kind of see it lined out. But then you've got a chart, and you've also got this total, what you've paid so far and what's remaining, based on how you mark them if they are paid or not here. So I'm going to throw in some sample data so you can see how this works. All right, so I've got a few samples in here, and you'll see it's got everything laid out down here in the table if you want to see it that way. We've also got this chart here so that you can see broken down how your expenses are getting distributed by category, how much is going in what. So you can see a quick visual of what's going on here. And then you've also got your total expenses of $950, paid so far is $550, you still got $400 remaining that you need to pay. So this is a good thing if at the beginning of each month you want to mark your regular fixed expenses or kind of budget things out and go and have that, and then you can come down here and as you pay them you can simply change this to yes, and that will adjust your totals up here as well. All right, so let's go over to your travel log, and again this is just if you're mobile, and this is pretty simple. You've got your fuel entry, so you're going to put in your date, your amount, and paid. This is exactly how everything else has worked. You submit it, you clear it, you submit it, you clear it. And it will fill in this table down here and tell you how much total that you've spent in fuel. Same thing for any repairs and maintenance that you have to have done to your car. And for any travel entry, we put in our date, the destination, odometer start, or odometer end, and that way it can calculate the actual trip distance and you can keep track of the total traveled miles. Next up, we're going to go ahead and move on to your marketing plan. And this is where you can sit here and you can outline all kinds of things. So let's say that we want to set a goal of spending no more than $500 this month on marketing. We've already spent $200 on Facebook ad over in our expenses, so that's getting calculated in here. And what it's going to tell us is, depending on how many clients that we're getting off of these ads and what our client gain is here, it will calculate your acquisition cost. So this is where you can just come and you can brainstorm and figure out what promotions you want to run, the name of the promotion, the purpose of it, and the goal. Any ads that you want to run, you can do here, and you can put in how much you've gotten in how much return you've gotten on that investment as far as money goes, and then how many clients, and it will calculate out your acquisition cost for you down here in this bottom row. So that way you can keep up with how your ads are doing if you're running ads. And then you've got space for events, emails, networking, social media, 1, 2, and 3. So you can change these names to be whatever you want. If you want to mark this as Facebook, go right ahead. Mark this as Instagram, the other's TikTok, whatever it may be. And you can see it automatically changes up here how you want it. So this is some results data that will start to fill in once you get some information in here. So we'll fill in some sample data and you can see how this works. So you can see I just put in one event here. We'll put our date up at the top. All of these kind of tables, regardless of the events, email, social media, whatever it is, you're going to put your date up top here. You'll put your name. I've got the exposure for events. So let's say there's going to be approximately 800 people at this event. It cost me $100 to be there. My contact is Jane Smith. I may put her phone number in there or something like that if I need to. Any notes for the event. And then here's where I can track my results. Let's say that I've got 10 clients off of this. So that's let's say they each spent $50 on average, so $500 in revenue. And then this calculates out for me my ROI in money, the percentage, and the client acquisition cost, how much per client it cost me to get them in the door. And you're going to do this same thing. You're going to put in the date and then all the relevant information for that event, emails, social media, post, networking, whatever it may be, and then a space for your results. Same thing for your networking. We want to know what business we're networking with, who we need to contact, what's the purpose of this, what's the benefit to them because it needs to be mutual, all that sort of stuff. And then keep track of how many clients were received and how many were sent. And then your social media post, you keep track of the post type, what's the purpose of it, your call to action, any media and text you want to have included in that, any notes about it, and then the engagement information that you get off of that. So you can keep track of all of those. And you'll see, we've just got that one point in here, but you'll see that in events, now this is populated to show us what we spent total on events, what the revenue of that was, new clients, total ROI, average ROI. All of this data is now here for us to see just plain as day for each of these marketing types. You'll also see, if we jump back over to calendar, that on January 2nd, which is the date that we marked this, it's already fed over that this is Girls Night Out. So we've got this on our marketing tab on our calendar now. So let's jump back over here. And that's kind of the gist of our marketing planning. So again, you've got lots of room here to be able to plan out all kinds of posts and emails and all sorts of things. I just wanted to give you a space to be able to kind of plot things out in an organized way and then be able to grab it as you need it. But more primarily be able to see the data in front of you so that you know what's working and what's not, so you can change it for next month. So that wraps up your monthly sheets. Now let's go to your gift cards. We're going to look at how you enter in your gift cards and packages and how you track those when they're used. So on your gift cards tab, you'll see you've got an entry form here and a redemption form here. You've also got some data here, so your total issued, total sold, how many have been earned or redeemed, how many are unredeemed or unearned. and how many you've got in use and how many are closed, and then all this data that will pop in here. So how does this work when we actually want to enter in a gift card? You don't have to come in here and type it all. You could, by all means, but if you do, you're erasing these formulas, and so it will not work like it's kind of supposed to. So let me show you real quick. If we go over to January, and we're going to go to our sales, and we're going to say Mr. John Smith is buying a gift card, and he's buying a $100 gift card. Before I hit submit here, or before I hit clear or anything else, I want to keep this data here. I'm going to jump over to that gift cards tab, and you're going to see it automatically populates here. Okay. Oh, I forgot to mark my employee. So let's say employee number 1, so that. And then I can enter in whatever card number I want to give this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just to keep it simple. So all this data auto-populates in, and then I can just add in a card number so that I have that reference. Hit submit, and you'll see it will populate down here. So all this information just copied right here. I can put in a recipient if I want to keep track of that, but all of this is now going to calculate or add in for me. So it's going to show the amount based on the type that they bought. It's going to show the expiration date based on how long we said gift cards are good for. It's going to show that it's in use. None of it has been redeemed yet, so there's still $100 sitting on this gift card. And you'll see we have our issued amount here, and it is still unearned because it is unredeemed. And we have one sold, and it is still in use. So you'll see all of this kind of just laid out for you at a quick glance, so when you have a whole bunch going on, you can see that really easily. So now let's say that they come in and they actually use this gift card. We need to put in that gift card number. We're going to say he redeemed $50 of it, and it was redeemed by employee number 1 again. We're going to hit submit, and you will see now that it will show, it's calculated for you, that $50 of that has been redeemed, $50 remains, and it's redeemed by, it's going to show which employees at each redemption were the therapist for that client. And so now you can see these totals have also changed for you as well. And let's say I can clear this out. I'm just going to submit it again so that you can see now we've had $100 applied to that gift card. And you can see both times the therapist was employee number 1. There's 0 balance remaining. It marks it red at the line through it so that we know this is now closed. It's now closed up here, and now the full $100 has been redeemed. All right, and that's it. So now the exact same kind of setup applies to packages. You've got a package entry and a package redemption. The only difference is that instead of an amount, you are doing the number of services redeemed. So when you go in to redeem a service, we are saying there's 1 or 2 services redeemed versus $50 redeemed. So same thing if we come over to January. And I can put the sale in here, and instead of a gift card, I say he's buying a package. And it's a 10 by 60. And that's employee number 2. Then when I come over to packages, I'm going to see all that again has auto-populated here. I'm going to put in my reference number and hit submit. And all of this pops down here. Shows me again the amount, the service count, the expiration based on when I said packages expire, whether it's in use, how many have been redeemed, who's redeemed by, and how many are remaining. And then package redemption, we do the same kind of thing as the gift cards. We say there's 1 service redeemed, we submit that, and now you can see we've got this 1 person redeemed here, excuse me, this 1 employee that redeemed it here, 1's redeemed, 9 are remaining. And so you'll just do that each time they come in and use a service on their package so you can keep track of who's got what and how much is left. Now don't forget, I still need to come back here in January. I never did submit this, so I can submit. And again, that just feeds into all our sales. All right, a couple more things. Our profit and loss statement. So this is really straightforward. This is just a basic profit and loss. The good thing is you can do it monthly, quarterly, or annually. So if we do it monthly, let's say I want to look at January, I've got all of that outlined here, all my expenses, all my revenue, and then the actual net profit. And I can change that up and do it annual, change this to complete. And obviously if I had more than 1 month data in here, that would all change. But you can also do this quarterly if you want. Pick first, second, third, or fourth quarter so that you can see things in whatever data points you want. All right, now we're going to go to our staff sheet. And this is where, of course, as an employer, this gets really important. We want to be able to see the info for our staff. So here we've only got data on 2 employees. That's all we've done in our sales so far, but you can see a quick comparison in this visual chart. But the nice part is these all change. So you can see I want to see results for just the month of February. We don't have any data on February, right? So I'm not going to see anything yet. But if I want to see just January, there we go. I can also see, instead of overall totals, I want to see just their services. I want to see their service count. So employee 1 had 2 services sold. Employee 2 only had 1 service sold. If I look at packages and say their package sale count, you can see they each had 1. So this gives you just a little bit of different look at the data so that you can compare very specific metrics between all of your employees with a quick visual. And then for each employee, they have their own little box here with all of their own data points. So these automatically populate in, their names and their titles will come over. And then we've got their total sales, total clients, new clients, rebooking rate. All of this calculates for you. You don't have to enter any data in here, but you'll see you've got this for each of your employees all the way down to employee number 15. Okay? So you can see all of these data points for each person specifically. So if you're doing performance review, this is a great option to come up here and actually look at all of this right in front of you so you've got it all there. Their services and all the info related to it, all of their add-ons, all of the product, gift cards, the packages, all of that stuff. You can see how many packages they redeemed, how many gift cards they redeemed versus sold, things like that. See what their average client spend was, their pay per client, return per client, all of that jazz. Now, when I say return per client, I do want to note here, instead of saying profit per client, because it's not true profit, because we're just deducting direct pay here. Since we're not deducting all the other stuff, it's not true profit per client, but it's a return from. Okay, so the total return from, anytime you see return from, that's profit, but it's more profit in the sense of only direct pay has been taken out. So I just want to clarify. That's why I didn't want to list it as profit and get anybody confused if you're not really well versed with understanding the difference between that direct pay versus a true pay. All right. So that is a basic overview of the staff sheet. It's pretty straightforward, but you've got all kinds of data there to be able to compare all of your employees to each other, to how they do from month to month. And so if we go back here to your dashboard, let's look at some of this a bit more in detail because it gives you a little bit of a better view as well. First, you've got your distribution of revenue. So this is like year to date, how this is laid out. This will just keep adding up for you. And then you can see all your year-to-date stats. So your gross, your expenses, your net, total service hours, total tax collected, credit card fees, rebooking rate, clients, pay per client, average client spend, and then also your employee pay and return from employees. How much you had to pay per each employee per client. All of that stuff's kind of laid out for you. And then you've got your charts down here. So you can see, I want to see my add-ons. We see our revenue from each of these. Again, we're only looking at January. So if I look at quarterly, that's also going to shift the chart. So you can look at monthly or quarterly breakdown of these. And you can see the packages, the primary services, all of that stuff. So you can see each one broken down. Your revenue versus expenses chart, which is going to show you, again, revenue versus expenses, so that you can see a comparison month to month. Your rebooking rate, how that's going to alter month to month. Your employee pay versus return from, so how much you're making off of those employees. And then average client spend. You can see this nice chart here to give you an overall view month to month. So again, just kind of this gives you the overall kind of overhead view of what's going on in the business at a quick glance. And then one last thing I want to note here, if you are not in the US, you do have these buttons here, by the way, to change the currency if you need to change that to a different type. And then if you accidentally click those, you can always change it back to the dollar. Now you'll notice in the Google Sheets version, you will see that the menu is just a little bit different. It's actually laid out completely instead of having a drop down for all the months. You'll also see that you don't have these buttons to change that currency. Instead, that is actually in the Google settings within the Google Sheet. All right, so that wraps things up. I think that covers everything in here. I know there's a lot to it. It can feel a little overwhelming at first. Take a breath. It's okay. It's actually pretty straightforward to use. A lot of this is just calculating data for you. So it's a lot visually, but that's because there's just a whole lot of things being done for you. You're only entering in your sales and expenses. And if you want to use the marketing strategy or the marketing planner, you can use that. If you're mobile, you might want to use the travel log. But beyond those monthly sheets, everything else is just kind of running in the background for you. So let me know if you have questions, if you run into any issues, anything at all, anything not calculating right, please let me know. I've checked for bugs. I've done a gazillion tests on these things. I think I've got it all running perfectly, but again, if you run into any issues, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. Or if you just got a question, you're not sure how something works, let me know, and I'll be happy to help you out with it. Thanks so much, guys. See you soon.